Hey everyone and welcome to Storytime. My name is Jake and today we are going to be looking at the subreddit r/maliciouscompliance, where people conform to the letter but not the spirit of a request. If you're new around here, please do hit subscribe down below so that you never miss out on another video. But for now, let's sit back, relax, and enjoy some malicious compliance. Told to dress better for a job that requires getting dirty. Okay, here's a bit of a background. I've worked in construction and service for 15 years. I recently gave up that career for a job in special effects for TV and movies. Last year, I started a production with people I've worked with in the past. I'm a known quantity, and my smart butt attitude usually precedes me. This production, which isn't out yet so the details will be sparse, is mostly set on a train. This set has to wag, shake and wiggle like a real train would. So we built heavy teeter-totters on wheels, all heavy gauge steel, casters and bearings. Now these gimbals, common name for a motion platform, have a tendency to make noise, which as you would imagine would affect production. So one of my jobs was to crawl under the set on a concrete floor and grease joints, tighten the bolts, etc. Safety checks were daily. This usually left me somewhat dusty and dirty through the day. Typically, I'd be wearing Carhartt pants and shirt, both black of course, gotta stay hidden in the dark as much as possible. Most film departments that have to do something physical quite often wear black on black, so anything else is abnormal. This is where we lead into my malicious compliance. One day, I got a small hole in my shirt. Just a little smaller than a dime, right on the front. So the first assistant, friend of mine that I've worked with before, says I really need to dress better as there should be an image we should attain. I just look at him unbelievingly for a second, and he re-insists. So I agree. I usually agree to things immediately to keep drama down in the workplace. I immediately know what I'm going to do for the rest of the week. This was on a Tuesday. The next day, I show up in my best dress clothes. Shirt, tie, dress pants, and dress shoes. Completely, 100% wholly overdressed. Nobody dresses for a wedding in any film department unless it's a theme day, like Tropical Shirt Friday. Dressed like this, I cannot do my job, so I just direct coworkers on how to do it. I spent the next 3 days dressing like that until the SPFX coordinator mentioned that maybe I should dress down now, as I had made my point. I also got a lot of complaints from more than a few people, and every couple of Fridays, people would come in with suits for formal Fridays. It was nice not getting my hands dirty, but spending close to 50 hours with a tie and dress shoes is something I'd like to avoid for a while. I find that so stupid. Why would anyone need to dress more formally for such a job? Like what? Want to fly to another state to pick up my kids? I'll take them back with me. So my mother is usually a very calm and understanding person who'll take a lot of stuff without complaining. But when she gets angry, she won't hesitate to bring up some sweet malicious compliance. My father, meanwhile, is the definition of an irritable mess, who loves being extremely petty, and it's a good thing he and my mother aren't married anymore, because I don't know how she ever stood him. This particular incident happened 2 years ago. So my parents were finishing up a custody trial. My father was losing the trial and he wasn't happy about it. He decided in the summer of 17 to try get back at my mother by taking a long vacation that goes through one of her weekends in the summer. Me and my sisters find this out fairly quickly as the summer begins and we tell our mother, who texts my father thinking he made a mistake. The conversation went something like this. Are you taking the kids out to the beach town from this date to that date? Yes, I am. You know I have a weekend during that time, right? Well, if you want to have them, then you can come pick them up and do whatever you want with them. What I'm doing is perfectly legal and within the laws, as we have to pick up the kids when it's our time. Surprisingly, he was right. My mother was done talking to him at that point and said nothing more on the matter. She just told us to enjoy our vacation at the beach town. So we spend the next couple of days at the town, and we've been to this place a half a dozen times, so we're kind of bored. My father only likes it because he bought a summer home there and he knows the people there, and sometimes goes out to the bars alone at night with my stepmother. Eventually, the weekend comes around, and at 6 PM, the time when a parent is supposed to pick up, my mother shows up at the summer house. My father is shocked, and she asks for the kids, stating that she has rented a hotel room here and has clothes for us. We take a ride with her in a cab back to the hotel, which she stayed at overnight, but she only packed 2 bags and only 1 set of clothes for us, which is odd as we're supposed to be here until Monday morning. She then takes out her airline tickets. We're taking the next flight home. Not one of us wanted to stay, of course. We're pretty tired of going to this place anyways, and we don't tell our father or stepmother. We fly home, and when Monday rolls around, my father is calling to ask where the kids are. My mother answers and tells him they're back home and that if he wants to have them, he can come pick them up. My father is screaming over the line at this point, and my mother calmly tells him this is perfectly legal and within the law, repeating back to him what he texted her at the beginning of the summer. My father spends the rest of the vacation alone in the beach town. I hope he enjoyed it with my stepmother. Since he nor my grandparents, the only other people who can take us in his name, our in-town custody law states that we instead spend that time with our mother. During that free week she got with us, we went to the amusement park and saw a few movies. Overall, we enjoyed that spectacle and time with our mother than going to the beach town for the umpteenth time. I hate how when parents go through divorces, they sometimes use their kids against each other when they're arguing. It's just like, no, just leave them out of it. Filling a hangar with foam. I heard this one from a fire sprinkler contractor on one of my job sites. Here is a video of a normal test of this type of system. The foreman and his crew were working on installing a foam fire suppression system in a new hangar. This system consisted of 8 foam generators mounted in the ceiling of the hangar, a diesel pump that would supply several hundred gallons of water to the system every minute, and 6 500-gallon tanks that held the foam solution. When the water and the foam mixed in the foam generators, the foam would expand to 200 times its original volume. When the system like this is completed, the system would be tested. This is never a full test of the full capacity of the system that would use all of the foam, but a small test to assure the functionality of the system, usually 100 gallons of foam or so. For this occasion, the owner rep came in and demanded a full triggering of the system. The foreman told the owner rep that they typically only do a short test. The owner rep replied, "Do you know how many millions of dollars of planes will be in this hangar? These systems are always fully tested. I want a full test and I want you to do it now." He tried to explain to the owner rep again, but the owner rep would have none of it. Luckily, the foreman had the forethought to write up a quick statement that the owner rep has ordered a full test, and the owner rep gladly signed it. The foreman and the owner rep proceeded to go up to the control room of the hangar to watch the test. The foreman then instructed one of his workers to do a full trigger on the system. When he did, the diesel water pump fired up and started pumping hundreds of gallons of water to the foam generators, along with the foam solution, and foam starts pouring into the hangar and filling the hangar. On a normal test, the hangar will usually only fill to about 10 feet deep, but they did not do a normal test. Soon, the foam was rising up the large glass windows on the control room, which was about 20 feet above the floor. The owner rep starts panicking and telling the foreman to stop the test. The problem with this is that with a large pump supplying such large quantities of water to feed this system, you can't just shut a valve and stop the water flow. This will blow out pipes and do significant damage to the pump. So the worker who triggered the system now has to go to the pump building to shut off the pump. But this does not shut off the water flow, as there is still pressure coming from the city water system, and it will still flow through the pump even when it is turned off. So the worker then has to go back to the hangar and start shutting off the 8 large valves to the foam generators. This all took a few minutes, in which the hangar is still filling with more and more foam. When they finally get the system shut down, the hangar is full to the roof with foam, as well as the attached brand new office area complete with carpet and furniture. Normally, the doors to any office areas are sealed for these tests, but the owner rep wanted the test now and did not give them time to properly seal the doors prior to the test. So now they had a hangar full of foam, an office full of foam, and 6 empty 500 gallons of foam tanks. A few days later, the owner rep's boss came to the hangar and demanded to know why they preformed a full triggering of the system. The foreman then pulled out the piece of paper that he had the owner rep sign that said he wanted a full test. The boss left with no further questions. They never saw the owner rep again on that job. Just for refilling the 6 500-gallon foam tanks, the bill was close to $150,000. The office area had to be fully cleaned as well. I'm just thinking, since they used the entire of the foam, surely they have to test it again once they've refilled it, no? It might not work the next time. Coming after my job? Hope you like doing things by yourself. Long story short, I used to work for Sam's Club in their cafe. For anyone that's never been to one, we served run-of-the-mill fast food, chicken tenders, hamburgers, hot dogs, etc. for really, really cheap. Where I'm at, the job pays $11 an hour, which is the highest pay you can get in unskilled labour in these parts. When I'd had to take a year off school because of some mental and emotional issues, it was basically what gave me a means to live, and I stayed there about a year before I left. So basically, this is where the story begins. I worked with about 7 other people, and I got along pretty well with most of my coworkers, and they all liked me because I actually showed up and did the work, except one. We'll call her Ray. Ray was your textbook definition of an entitled witch, and did her best to show you up every chance she got. You got a raise? Hers was higher. You got a pat on the back from the manager? Oh, they do that to everybody. Not to mention, if you made a mistake, she made sure you knew it. It didn't matter what it was either. I've seen her talk down to people for missing a speck on the counter, and then going to report them to management for harassment when they tried to defend themselves. She also liked to use her anxiety to manipulate people to leave them alone up front on purpose when they wronged her, so she could stay in the back and wash dishes, out of sight, and play on her phone. She did this to me a number of times. The whole department hated her, but had no reason to fire her since she never really broke the rules. Well, cue midsummer. There was a local anime convention I wanted to go to with my friends, and I made sure to take off at least a month and a half in advance to give management time to find a replacement for me while I used my PTO. I was also extra considerate to my coworkers, making sure to get as much done as I could before I left the night before my absence to leave the morning crew with little to do. Management, as well as my coworkers, were all aware that I wouldn't be there for almost 4 days. and so did she. However, this didn't stop her from crying that I was skipping work because I hated working there and my mental disorder made the job too much to handle and that I'd been threatening to quit so they should just fire me. I tried to comfort her in the past before I realised she was a liar during one of her fake panic attacks by saying I understood how she felt because I actually had a diagnosed problem. Management, of course, waved her off and my co-workers laughed at her. However, when I'd found out she'd come after my job, I was absolutely livid. Not only did I depend on this job to survive, but I was also depending on it for financial aid purposes in the fall, which would be jeopardized if I lost it. Cue malicious compliance. I told my department head about what had happened, and while she really didn't have any power to discipline anyone, other than rolling the issue over to management, where nothing would be done, or sending you home for the day, she did have the power to assign duties. So, she started assigning me to stay in the back, and Ray to the front. My other co-workers eventually caught on, and joined in. Every time she would try to play on her phone while the rest of us were busy, she would be ushered to the front and center, and forced to run everything mostly by herself, no matter how long the lines were. We would only do what was expected of us, and nothing more. People also stopped covering shifts for her too, because she pulled the same stunt with several others. And when she pulled her fake panic attacks to try and get out of it, she was told to go home, without pay, if she couldn't handle the work. Thankfully, I did get to leave that awful place, and now work for a very large tech company as an app developer. I'm also back in school and happier than ever, and guess where she is? Still there. Every time I've come into shop at the store since, on my parents' club card, she's always in the cafe, working by herself. After hearing all that talk about cheap burgers and hot dogs and everything, I'm really hungry now. I need to go get some food. Hey everyone, I hope you all had a really good day and that you enjoyed that video. If you want to check out some other videos, then click on screen right now or check out the playlist down below. If you enjoyed that video, then please do leave a like. And if you want to submit your own stories, then you can do so by joining the Discord in the top link in the description. But thank you so much for watching and I will see you very soon.